Good afternoon, and welcome to Diabolical Evil Schemes Done Better. Now, before we begin today's oral intercourse, I must caution you, the spoilers within are really very sinister and detail some quite horrific events. Dreadful. Ah, oh, shit, actually. Change it. It was better in my head.
Oh, good.
No, definitely keep it, yeah.
What was it, Michael Caine, yeah? It's pretty good.
This is Bond.
It's the role he was born to play, baby.
Let's not start criticising each other's Hitchcock impressions just yet.
We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
This is Diabolical, the comedy podcast where four long-suffering friends dissect films' most dastardly schemes, then try to improve them. I'm your host Gaz, and this week's movie is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. So, Peril Pals, keep an eye on that car and make sure it sinks into the lake fully. And for the four in attendance, and the trillions listening at home. Let's get diabolical! Hello, and welcome to this week's pod, on which I'm joined by the panel of peril, who will compete at the show's close to see who can improve the villainous pun of the week the best to win points for our Season 3 leaderboard in the show's competitive round. But first, if the panel could introduce yourselves and tell us who your favourite movie serial killer is, please. Let's begin with Ben.
Hello, my name is Ben, and my favourite movie serial killer is Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
He hadn't even popped into my head. Yeah.
He's not one that everybody would think of, and he is a chilling bastard.
Yeah.
Petrol station scene's my favourite in that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
About the coin, how far it's travelled to get to where it is.
Yeah. Don't put it in with the other coins.
Oh, it becomes such a coin, which it is.
Yeah. But is he a serial killer or is he more of an assassin? I mean, I guess he kills people he doesn't have to.
Yeah, that's what I got from it.
I think, yeah. Well, you'll see my choice in a minute. It links quite nicely.
And next, we shall have Countertacular, please.
Hey, it's Craig here, and no beating about the bush. My favourite movie serial killer is Dr. Hannibal Lecter, particularly in the film Ridley Scott's Hannibal, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Guts in or guts out, like Judas. I'll decide if you'll let me. Excellent.
Yeah.
I used to say in my teen hubris that I thought Brian Cox was the best Hannibal Lecter, but actually Anthony Hopkins, there's just something about his portrayal. And obviously Mads Mikkelsen as well. I can't speak to Gaspard Ulliel. I've never been able to get through Hannibal Rising.
Never tried. Not overly inclined myself.
I read the book, and that was enough for me.
Yeah. The book is shit, and the film will be condensed shit.
Exactly.
I think they incorporate some elements of Hannibal Rising into the Hannibal TV series third season, which were really good.
The Japanese is she his stepmother or something like that?
I think she's his sister.
Yeah. And the fact that he killed a load of Nazis.
Don't they become lovers, though, with the bell bugs?
They might do. Not in Hannibal, because it's only interested in homosexual love between Hannibal and Will. Doesn't want to know about any other ladies.
Might watch this.
Yes, he likes sticking his knife into his guts, of course.
Yes.
Quite the metaphor there.
Yeah. He likes other serial killers, and he doesn't like rude people.
Even though murdering people in absolutely heinous ways is quite rude in itself.
Could be considered a social faux pas, yeah.
You know,
Oh, but you got to see the
exactly.
meals he makes of them. They're quite exquisite.
You see him like putting peppercorns in Eddie Izzard's leg and stuff.
Welcome to Diabolical, a comedy podcast where we spoil Hannibal, the TV show.
Okay, let's hear what Adam has to say for himself.
Well, hello there, Adam here, and my favourite movie serial killer is also linked in a similar way to Ben's pick, as he is a man motivated by both money and some sort of gratification from his killings, and that is the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski, portrayed by Michael Shannon in the 2012 film, but he was a real mafia hitman. I would recommend watching the film and the documentaries on YouTube because they are terrifying.
All right.
Thoroughly unpleasant chap.
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, same.
It sends a shiver down your spine, really. It's incredible, this guy talking about all these people he's killed, but then seeing it, put what he tells in the documentaries put onto the screen, and it's like, oh my God. And all the while he's doing this, he's got a wife and 2 kids, and they don't know anything about it at all. Keeps it secret for years and years and years and years. Incredible.
Yes, I might track that one down and give it a damn good viewing.
Yes.
And my favourite movie serial killer is Patrick Bateman.
I knew it. I called it. I got it.
Did you?
Right down here. Yeah, I knew yours would be Patrick Bateman. And I knew Catataculars would be
Hannibal.
be
the
Hannibal.
cannibal.
I had no idea what turns would be, and rightly so. I still don't know who turned who.
I thought he was going to say like Darth Vader, something like that. Gandalf.
The white cat from Cats and Dogs. Psycho, based on Robert Bloch's book of the same name, was released in 1960 to a tepid critical reaction. This followed the established pattern of lackluster reviews, followed by boffo box office that would be the status quo for Alfred Hitchcock until his critical re-evaluation by the Cahiers du Cinéma, Francois Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard, etc., later that decade. When Paramount Studios balked at Hitchcock's initial pitch for the film due to its lurid nature, he offered to film it on the cheap with the crew from his television series Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which was also rejected by the suits, claiming that the studio space was all fully booked up. Finally, only when proposing to self-finance the feature and waive his usual directing fee in favour of a 60% stake in the gross was Psycho green-lit. The controversial tale of unmarried daytime trysts, casual theft, and a sexually repressed / cross-dressing murderer is an undisputed classic and kick-started the subgenre we now call the slasher movie. Its influence is felt in films such as John Carpenter's Halloween, Bob Clark's Black Christmas, and Brian De Palma's Raising Cain, and has been referenced endlessly in comedy, most notably The Simpsons spin on the shower scene where Maggie bashes Homer on the head as a can of red paint spills over the floor. But enough of that piss. What did everybody think of the film?
They also riff on Psycho, where it's the X-Files episode of Simpsons where Homer is walking through the forest and he hears and then it's just that orchestra getting off the bus as well.
Yeah. And Garth in Wayne's World when he's stabbing the little donut man, making the
Wow.
I mean, I think the list could go on and on with
What's
that.
the matter, Mr. Donut Man? I don't know. I don't feel so good. Oh no.
Who would like to begin?
Well, I had. Go ahead.
Well, I haven't seen it for some time, but it's lost none of its power. It must be in the top 50 movies of all time, I would have thought, easily still. And 63 years old. It's still packing a punch. You could put it in a textbook of how to become a fabulous director, basically. Follow these these not so simple steps, maybe.
That's a name for a book.
You know what I mean? Because there's so much in there, and you just, for a filmmaker and for a critic as well, I guess, or if you're looking at it through a more critical lens anyway, there's so much in there for everybody. You know, there's the great performances, there's the lighting, the cinematography, the editing, the music. It's just endless, and it's all tied up neatly as well, really well. I just loved it. And one of my notes was, it's a real masterclass, and cinema owes a huge debt to Hitchcock, and Bernard Herrmann is painfully ignored, I think, particularly at the time. That motif, I don't know if he managed to lever any extra financial gains out of it, but it's been used over and over and over and over again, hasn't it?
Next, let's have Ben.
So this was the first time I've seen this film the
No
whole
way.
way through.
Oh my
Wow.
god!
And I'll tell you a little story about why. I remember it being on around midnight one Halloween, and I think I was about 13 or 14. And I pleaded with my parents to stay up and watch it, and they finally gave in and said, "Yeah, go for it." I was waiting and waiting. I think it was on BBC Two. Finally came on. My eyes were already.
Note to myself to get some spooky music on this.
Yeah.
My eyes were already drooping. And it comes on, and I'm watching it, and we get to the motel, and I'm sleepy, but it's nothing scary's happened yet. It's quite tense, but nothing scary's happened yet. And then the shower scene happens, and I just bolt to bed, turn it on up the stairs. Too rich for my blood.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Because you don't see any gore. There's no real, makeup or anything in there.
It's horrifying, though.
It's all
Yeah.
done with cuts and sound.
Yeah,
It makes you feel like you're right there, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And, it was well after midnight. It was well after midnight. Everyone else had gone to bed. It was, it was scary. So I never got through it. But this time I managed to get through it, and I had an absolutely great time with it. It's a great film, probably among the best we've done, I'd say.
Yeah.
And recently we've been talking about films like Empire Strikes Back, Barry Lyndon, that you could almost watch silent and still know
Right.
exactly what's happening. And this is another film in that category.
Yeah.
It lets the camera do the bulk of the storytelling. I loved how ballsy it is. It makes you identify with Marion for so long, then kills her off, and then you're kind of floundering. And for one moment, you're identifying with Norman. When the car's sinking in the swamp and you think it's going to stop, you're like, oh no. And then you realise, oh, why am I rooting for Norman? So just Hitchcock, he just plays you right the way through the film.
Yeah.
He has you exactly where he wants you, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
The only thing I would change, I'd say, is the monologue at the end. It felt too mansplainy for me. And I suspect if it were made again today, it might not be included.
The therapist monologue, or
Yeah, exactly. The therapist monologue.
okay, yeah.
I thought, kind of after the film, as I was reflecting on it, it would have been really cool to have ended on the skeleton turning around in the chair and just Marion's sister screaming, and then let the audience fill in the blanks. But yeah, overall, I'd give it a "you'd be a fool to miss it" rating out of 5.
Oh, that sounds good to me. Great, yeah. Oh, he's very handsome, spectacular. Would you also give it something in the vein of "you'd be a fool to miss it" rating?
Yeah, it's one of our greatest directors' greatest films. So Hitchcock, unappreciated in his time, as you say, but I think few people nowadays would write him off. And this is a brilliant example of a master at work. As you say, bringing this in under $1 million with his TV crew, using black and white to make it cheaper, but all his knowledge coming to the fore makes that all the richer because he uses shadows, reflection, brilliant framing and blocking. As you say, the master stroke of this is that you start very much from the point of view of Marion, and you follow her story for, it must be a third of the whole runtime. And then they had that one scene with her and Norman having a dialogue where it brings you more into his world than it has done with any character she's spoken to before. And you get a real sense of him through, that room he's in, the way he shifts in his chair, how close he is to how far away he is from at different points when he's talking, how much of a presence Mother is to him, and the different kinds of birds he's got in there. Some are birds of prey, some are like more docile birds. And then, even though he's acted quite sinister in that scene, as you say, when you're kind of tricked into believing that he's shocked to find the body, doesn't know Mother's done it, maybe he doesn't, and as you say, you're there's a feeling of tension as the car's going in, and you suddenly realise that you have changed your in to the film, the character that you're following. That's the masterstroke of it.
Yeah,
it's a masterpiece.
Yes, I would echo everything you three chaps have said in reference to the car sinking scene, the homage that I referred to in the opening in Brian De Palma's Raising Cain. He does a lot of psycho homages in many films, but in Raising Cain, John Lithgow's character kills a woman, puts her in the back seat of a car, pushes it into a lake, and it doesn't sink. And it's John Lithgow hamming it up like crazy. The sun is rising, which is the tension for some reason. He's like looking back and forth between the car and the sun. It is so funny. Honest to God, it's one of the funniest things I've seen recently. But yeah, that's absolutely a standout scene. I think from the second it starts, it took me by surprise. The DVD started instantly that I watched. It didn't go to a menu. And Bernard Herrmann's score is just frantic instantly. It's this and you're like, Jesus Christ, we're off.
Yeah. Which is quite at odds with where it starts, isn't it?
Yeah. It does it for some quite calm scenes as well, with Marion just sort of milling about as well at the start. I think the sort of crazy strings.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, and even the marketing for it at the time, because films back then, for any Peril Pals listening who are unaware, they used to just run on a constant loop in the cinemas without a break. You'd have your newsreel, your cartoons, and the film just constantly running. And wherever you walked in was where you'd watch it from, and then you'd like stay in and go back to the start and watch again. But Hitchcock's rule for Psycho was you were not allowed in after the film starts, which was a first time kind of thing, because he wanted to protect the twist at all costs. Yeah, so just a complicated man, but quite brilliant at his craft. And yeah, I would probably agree. I think it's probably my favourite of the films that we've done to date as well. I'd forgotten just how much I enjoyed it. It's just it absolutely batters through, doesn't it? You're not bored for a single second.
Yeah, no chance.
Yeah, it's a fantastic roller coaster ride of a film.
What's quite surprising is the way it's the acting throughout. It's not, none of it is like, by modern standards, it's still held up quite well, because we've seen some, we watched Night of the Hunter, and you think that's only 5 years previous to Psycho, and the style of acting in that is completely different.
Melodrama.
Yeah, they're both classics in their own right, but Psycho is stood the test of time better.
Yeah, Anthony Perkins more than anybody sets that tone. I think
he's so good.
Yeah,
I think Janet Leigh is just hypnotic as well in everything that she does, and
she's better in her scenes with him, don't you think?
Yeah, but
I think she responds to his performance. And the scenes before that are all a bit, not quite Night of the Hunter level, but a bit more towards the kind of golly shucks, Cary Grant.
Yeah, in that direction, yeah.
Whimsical stuff of the period. But once Anthony Perkins gets into it, it becomes more contemporary, and his performance is very subtle and nuanced. I thought she responded to that. I think she's much better in her scenes with him.
I would say it's probably done on purpose as well.
Yeah.
Because of the way the film starts.
Yeah. Because they're in the throes of passion to begin with, aren't they? And her with a lover. And then it starts in that sort of way. And then it just gradually gets it cranks up the seriousness and the intensity as you go through, because it's obviously what she's going to do when she takes the money home and stuff. And you're like, well, here we go. This is where it starts getting interesting straight away, and you're less than 10 minutes into the film.
That's one of your first amazing silent film visual cues is when it cuts to her bed with the open money envelope and then to her suitcase, and nothing's said, but you know everything that's happening just like visually. It's brilliant.
One of my favorite my favorite sequence we'll get into later is a section before she meets Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. So I'll get into that afterwards.
Just a quick interesting note about the bed scene with what's he called? The fella that she's with.
Loomis.
Sam Loomis.
Oh yeah, Sam Loomis. Yeah. The film was subject to the Hays Code of Hollywood. And so I think Hitchcock at the time pushed it as far as he could, having Janet Leigh in her big pointy bra, pulling her tits as far apart as humanly possible, without snapping them off. But the Hays Code at the time said that at least one person had to have a foot on the floor. So if you notice, they've both got their legs hanging off the edge.
Wow.
The fact that they're unmarried as well was quite boundary pushing at the time. And it's also when Marion tears up her little sums for returning the money and flushes them in the toilet. First flushing toilet on a film.
Yeah.
Really?
That's the first note I wrote about this. First film to show a flushing toilet. There's also a promo that Hitch does where he's in the bathroom and he's saying, this is where the murder took place and here's where some evidence was found, and he lifts the toilet seat and puts it down, but you don't see the toilet properly and it doesn't flush. He's teasing the toilet even in his promo.
You got paid to see the real thing.
Yeah.
Just going back to Anthony Perkins, it was quite sort of a big risk for him at the time because he was quite a heartthrob prior to Psycho. But I'm not sure whether it was actually ever confirmed, but I think was homosexual, and certainly playing Norman Bates changed the public perception of him, so he got a lot less work than perhaps he would have had he not taken the gamble on a role like this one.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of gender stuff in this as well that must have been playing on his mind. Cross-dressing, the whole Oedipal thing with Mother. Yeah, I think it would have been a huge thing for him. I mean, I hope that he enjoyed his legacy in the Psycho sequels, which are all kind of enjoyable. They're not Psycho, but they're not bad.
I've only seen 4 to my knowledge. But Arrow Video announced a new box set the day after I watched this, so I may buy that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of the updated ones, or remakes, or sequels, or whatever you want to call it. None of them.
Those ones are sequels, they're direct sequels.
Okay. No, I've not seen any of them. But, I mean, it's his legacy as that character now, isn't it? His performance. As that character. And it's that face at the end that appears in all the lists of famous serial killers on screen and stuff like that. It's that last. It's got to be the last sort of 5 seconds of the movie, isn't it?
It is the most famous image from the movie, which is why it's quite striking when Marion's in the car, hearing voices in her head. She smiles at the camera in a very similar way. Who's the real psycho? Huh?
Do you think when Marion's hearing those voices that those are real conversations, or are those her imagining what the conversations might be?
I read it as her imagining what the conversations might be.
Yeah,
both she and Norman imagine what distant voices of authority, how they would be oppressed by them, and that's kind of what they're both railing against. Because obviously the stuff Mother says she's not saying either, right? It's just stuff that's in his head that he imagines she might say. So I think that's the same thing that's happening with her. She's just kind of running through all the scenarios, as you do when you're feeling guilty about something. You run through all the different possible things that could happen.
Oh, your head runs away with it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do we all feel about taxidermy?
What, in real life?
It's weird, isn't it?
I'm pro taxidermy.
I don't like it.
If you went into a room in the middle of nowhere with a guy who was being quite hospitable and giving you milk and a sandwich, and then you go into a room full of stuffed animals, I'd be like, "Oh, I think I left the gas on."
Have you ever seen the behind-the-scenes thing of Anne Hesh on Gus Van Sant's Psycho remake, where it's like a demonstration of how she and Vince Vaughn and Gus Van Sant didn't really understand Psycho, but it's her in like rehearsals going, "Look at all these stuffed animals, you motherfucker!" "Hey, you psycho motherfucker! I'm getting out of here!" Just like screaming. So weird.
It's just horrible.
If you ever seen that, by the way, Vince Vaughn is horrible in it, and
Yeah.
like they say it's a shot-for-shot remake, but it somehow looks cheap and shit.
Why do that anyway?
I don't know.
I don't know what the value is if you're not going to put your own stamp on it.
It's just the studio wanting to make more money again, isn't it? That's all. They're just trying to get a cash injection, like they always do with fucking.
Well, he won an Oscar, didn't he, for Good Will Hunting, best film or director, I forget which. And they were like, "What do you want to do next?" He was like, "I want to remake Psycho shot for shot." And they were like, "Okay, if that's what you want to do."
Why the fuck would you?
He
Why
wanted to
would
do
you
it,
want to do
guess what,
that?
son?
I just don't understand. Like, you know, Psycho, like we said, is up there all time greats. You know, you shouldn't mess with them because they don't need to be messed with. That's why they're all time greats. So then you go somehow you end up so far up your own arse that you think you can beat or equal a great. It's beyond me.
For me, the best you can do in that situation is equal something that's out there, right? If you're doing it shot for shot, I don't think you're going to make it better.
Nah.
So that can't be
No.
an aspiration. So
Yeah.
the best thing you can aim for is equaling something that already exists. So what's the point?
It isn't as well. So like, it's not lit well. That whole exchange that takes place in the parlor, you can't see like the taxidermy birds. They're all like out of focus and out of frame and stuff. So it just ruins the whole setup. It's really, really weird.
Exactly.
On Steven Soderbergh's website, he did a cut of the two films together called Psychos, just alternating between the two. So that's free to view if anybody's interested. Apparently, it's worth a watch.
I watched his black and white Raiders with no sound on it. That's fucking brilliant. Just that he wanted to study like framing and blocking in Spielberg style, so he just put Raiders in black and white, took out all the music and everything, and just cut a silent version of it, and it's on his website. So check that out.
Not too far away from me here in Japan, there's a town, and in Japan, if you've been here, you'll know that basically every town has its own specialty. So the town I live in is rice crackers, and each town has their own. And this town's specialty is taxidermy. So when you get off the train at the station, there's quite a lot of taxidermists.
Yeah,
like, gathered around the station area. It's
hawking their
weird.
wares, literally.
Just like
hawking their
squirrels
wares.
like that looking at you as you get on the train.
Speaking of hawking, something I found out this week that I didn't know before is I was interested in what the birds represent thematically, and what I found out is that bait, obviously his name is Norman Bates, bait is a falconry term for when a bird that's on a perch flaps its wings but doesn't take off, which kind of suggests like being tethered and agitated, which Norman is both of those things, right? And obviously Marion's surname is Crane. Crane's a bird, so she's one of his birds that he's preying on.
Birds are also kind of the supernatural connotations, isn't there? Like Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven and The Crow being the guide to the afterlife and things of that nature.
Yeah.
What I will say is that I think taxidermy is due a comeback, but it's going to have to up its game. As I've mentioned before, I think animatronics and taxidermy mixed is where the future is at. And for all you peril pals out there, once I die, if anyone has the expertise to do that to me, I am willing.
Yeah.
I'd like to tip a hat or something. Just have my arm tipping a hat.
It's like a motion sensor, so whenever anybody comes near you.
I want a motion sensor in me, and then as long as the person is like below 1.4 meters tall, I'll chase them down the street or something. That'd be great.
I can tell you another thing that I learned, which is the painting in Norman's parlour that conceals his peephole is called The Rape of Lucretia, and it's based on an opera. And the plot is that Rome has sunk into depravity and all the women are unfaithful except one, Lucretia. and the king's son is goaded into pursuing her, and he goes to her room at night and rapes her. And when her husband comes home, she stabs herself because she feels she'll never be clean again. And obviously what Norman's peering on is Marion's efforts to get clean after the guilt of her robbery, and you can see that she's starting to enjoy the shower and stuff, and then obviously he stabs her. So that's probably not an accident from a fella like Hitchcock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds like it's nicely tied in there. Do you think Norman Bates had previously been institutionalized? Because when Marion she says, put his mum in like a home or whatever, someplace, he starts getting a bit shirty about saying it's in institution, meaning institution. It's, maybe not just hit upon a nerve, as in like he's worried about putting his mum in there, or whether he's actually been in one of those places himself.
I think maybe she was, and like it was known that she had a screw loose, and he didn't like that. He's quite defensive of her, isn't he? Well, obviously he kept her body around.
Imagine the whiff from a 10-year-old corpse. Can't be good.
Well, he uses the taxidermy skills, doesn't he, to preserve her the best he could.
Yeah, but you'd imagine the state of her. There must be.
After a while, though, they stop smelling, don't they? There's a certain period where like the bodily fluids all leak out of you, and that's a stinky bit. But after that, it's like beef jerky.
But he definitely treated her because there's like a sheen, and it does mention it, and so it's like what they did with mummies. Mummies don't smell either.
Yeah. Arnold Vosley certainly doesn't smell.
Well, he does. He smells of fragrant oils.
Okay, should we move on to favourite scenes?
I'll go first quickly, as we've already sort of briefly touched upon it. Is the scene with Marion driving out of town, and then she's imagining all the conversations. Her face gradually sort of changes into a smile as she sort of convinces herself that she sort of smugly grins is smirking almost. As she reaches the end of that sequence and the end of the conversations, and I just love that mix of her just sat there and her facial expressions, the conversations going on, and then the music as well, the score behind it. And I just think that was a really, really interesting sequence for me. It's great. Usually it's not done as well as that, and I don't think it's ever been as done as well as that. To be honest, I completely forgot about the scene. You often hear about things where you see scenes in movies where they have a similar thing, they're reflecting on what people might say, and then there's, pictures may come in of people's faces shouting at them and stuff like that. But I think that's another reason why it can't be bested in so many aspects.
Yeah, once you've seen the film more than once, you can't watch that without thinking about the ending.
How it's a reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one passed me by because it was my first watch.
Yeah.
Let's go countertacular.
The stabbing, the murder scene, it's just incredible.
The shower scene.
Yeah, especially after she tears down the curtain and slumps to the floor, and her completely still face, the camera stays on her for a while, then it moves into her room to look at the money again, and then through her window to look at the house. It's quite a scene. Incredible piece of filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's the way she doesn't expire immediately either, does she? She's sort of trying to cling on, and she's at the outstretched hand, and then she's going. You think, is she going to go? And then if you don't know, you think maybe she's just clinging to life just about, but then obviously she goes over the side of the bathtub, and that's it. And it's, you see her face mushed onto the floor, and it's just,
and the sound of her face hitting the floor as well.
Yeah.
A lot of sound in that scene. Obviously, like I said earlier, you don't really see anything in the attack, but there's a lot of tearing flesh sounds. That's what gets you.
Nearly ran foul of the censors, that scene, didn't it? Because when they were first shown it, they were convinced that you could see the knife penetrating flesh and full nudity.
Right.
And he didn't change a frame, Hitchcock. He said, just watch that scene in isolation again and pay attention to the music. And apparently the censor was like, oh, I see.
Yeah. Wow. I watched him on a show. I think it was I watched a couple of videos or interviews of him talking about the film, and he was on the Dick Cavett show, and he was saying that exact same thing. He was like, watch it very carefully. And this was like in the 70s, and he says there was not, knife didn't touch a body once. And he goes, they even had like a dummy made up with loads of tubes of blood. So every time you'd hit it with a knife, the blood would explode. And he goes, we never use it. We never needed to use it.
Yeah. And one of the reasons Hitch wanted to shoot in black and white was so that he could show a lot of blood without it being red. So.
There's a reason why that film has been parodied and homaged and dissected over the years. It's one of the most iconic scenes in film history. I mean, even if you haven't seen Psycho, you know the shower scene.
Yeah,
definitely. And what was your favourite scene then?
And what say I? I say the Abragast murder was my favourite.
Oh, you son of a bitch! That's gonna be mine.
let me change that. My favourite scene
That's
is.
okay.
I knew it was going to be yours, which is why I didn't say it.
Yeah, there's just something about it. I mean, the first one's great, but the second one, it just feels a little bit more frantic, and I don't know. It just happened so fast. It made me. It was actually a real jump scare.
That impossible dance down the stairs.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if the footage at first where Mother runs out is sped up, but it just seems something a little bit unearthly about it.
Another sort of red herring. You think he's going to be the guy to catch Mother and bring everything to a head, but no, he's gone within about 5-10 minutes. He's dispatched with.
He's the dad in Panic Room.
Yeah.
He's the sheriff in Misery as well.
Right. He's the caretaker in The Shining. Yeah.
Well, why do you like that scene, Gaz?
Similar reason to yourself. I think it's Hitchcock's one of his many nicknames was the Master of Suspense, and from the moment Arbogast enters the Bates Motel, you're waiting for it, aren't you? And it slowly ekes it out. He looks in the kitchen or the parlor, whatever it is, and he slowly creeps upstairs. But then it comes sooner than you think it will. The attack is the brilliant part about it. The camera cranes up to this brilliant sort of slightly angled view down the stairs, and she's just out, just nails him in the chest and just backwards down the stairs. A great little stunt of the guy just absolutely smashing himself into the floor, and then just mounts him to get a few more stabs in. It's genuinely shocking because like you say, the shower scene is absolutely iconic and you kind of know it before you see the real thing. But that Arbogast murder is I think it's something else. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, some people might consider this a little bit on the nose, but the lighting of his entrance into the motel as well, he's always like literally in the dark, as his character is, as to what he's in for and what's going on. Same thing happens when Marion's sister and Loomis show up. They're almost always in the dark, but like Norman's always lit. He's very well lit because he's the one who knows what's going on.
I mean, there's so much of that throughout. Even like the power dynamics are shown through the height of the camera. It's amazing.
The scene in the parlor as well, that's another favourite, because the power dynamic in that shifts just by him moving in his chair. Like he'll relax back in his chair and he'll kind of fondle the birds behind him. But then when he's agitated, when she's goading him, he moves forward. And then there's that bit where it switches to his side profile when he's really angry at her. And then, is it an owl or a hawk or something in the corner behind him? Is right in the frame with him. And it's all very sinister. Great stuff like that.
Shall we move on to favourite lines?
Oh, yeah. I got a great one.
Okay. Well, that being the case, countertacular. Let's have yours first.
Here we go.
I'm back to the hardware store when Marion's sister comes to speak to Loomis. He wants to be alone, so he says to his boy behind the till, he says, run out and get yourself some lunch. And the kid's like, oh, that's okay, I brought some lunch with me. And he looks at him again and he goes, run out and eat it. Get the fuck out. Read between the lines, man.
Yeah, that's good. And Adam?
Simply, I'll lick the stamps. Right at the start, she says that. I was like,
Yeah.
ho, 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 ho. You lick the stamps,
Did your eyebrow
will ya?
raise when you heard
it?
Slide whistle went. And Ben?
My favourite line comes from when Norman is trying to persuade Mother to hide out in the basement in the fruit cellar. And she says, "You think I'm fruity, huh?"
Yeah.
Gaz, you're the resident psychology expert. Do you know about the theory Freud's superego, ego, and id as the 3 levels of the Bates house? And symbolically, Norman picks up Mother and takes her down from the superego down into the id.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, yeah. Might be a bit of a reach, but I like it.
Yeah, I think Hitchcock was only mildly interested in psychoanalysis. I think he tried, I forget which film it was, he tried to make a film specifically about it, and he had quite a bad experience. So I think it turned him off the practice in general because his film didn't work. I forget which one it was. But,
well, they do sometimes call this the first psychological thriller, don't they? So.
Yeah, I call it a stabathon.
It's definitely more of a slasher, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, he famously said he likes to play his audiences like a piano, so perhaps he's more of a musician than a psychologist.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me, isn't it? I didn't really write any lines down. The only one that I've written down is from the final monologue, Norman as Mother to the camera, and the fly lands on him, and he just says, "I'm not even going to swat that fly. They'll see, and they'll say, why? She wouldn't even harm a fly." And then the skull appears on his face very briefly. God damn, that is so good. And then it cuts straight to the car being pulled out of the lake with the end.
Yeah.
Good stuff. In Psycho, Norman Bates bides his time at his motel waiting for unsuspecting travellers to down tools for the night in one of his 12 empty cabins. Once our erstwhile heroine, Marion Crane, arrives, the Norman half of his personality makes his guest comfortable, perhaps by sitting down to an evening meal with them. But unbeknownst to the blonde bombshell, Norman has another half of his psyche, Norma Bates, his mother. Once they are settled, Mother sets upon the motel victims using her preferred method of violently stabbing her victims to death, which leaves Norman to perform the cleanup operation, mopping up blood, moving the body, and disposing of their belongings. But what does the panel think of this method?
Well, I'd say the tar pit is probably the best part of it. It's a good hidey place. He must confess to where the car is for them to find it, I think.
He does. Yeah, that's mentioned at the end.
Yeah. So where he's kind of comes undone is Mother's got no patience. Soon as Marion's sister's in the house, she's like, we need to stab her.
Get her stabbed. Get her stabbed.
do you see that as a plan? Or I feel like that Norman has absolutely zero control over when Mother pops out.
No, Mother has no plan at all. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Mother's a creature of instinct. She's got no patience, whereas Norman, his plan to cover up Mother's tracks, I feel is quite good.
Right.
Oh no, he's a shit liar. When Arbogast comes in, I think you think he's got this, nailed this, because he's quite chilled. And then the second he sort of raises a suspicion and Arbogast puts him under scrutiny, he just goes, I remember seeing her now, but her hair was wet, so yeah. And it's like, fucking
He thinks he's in charge until he gets caught out quite easily, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's like a house of cards. He just collapses straight away.
But, Arbogast is a skilled interrogator, I think, as well.
No, but all he's doing is going around all the motels going, have you seen her? Have you seen her? Have you seen her? And I've written Arbogast, shit PI, Norman Bates, shit liar.
He says that, but he knows when he gets there, it's the one that's off the highway, it's the one that's empty. He knows there's something off about the place. He's got a gut feeling
but
for it.
And he picks up on every little tick.
I'd say if Norman Bates had been a convincing liar, like a lot of psychopaths are, he could have got away with it, because Arbogast is just using a scattergun tactic. If private investigator is just going around everywhere.
But as soon as he picks up a scent, though, he goes for it like a bloodhound, and that's what unsettles Norman.
Yeah, but he's not. He's going. Oh, I think something's off. I'm just going to go and speak to the old lady.
So unless this ruins your plan, and don't tell me if it does, but if this doesn't ruin your plan, how would you answer the question of has this woman been here?
No.
But then that's what he says. So how are you better?
Because he goes like, "Oh, can I see your book?" And he's like, "Oh, no, you can't see that."
GDPR.
Yeah.
But he starts saying stuff about like doing the laundry, but then he gets caught. He goes back and he says something different about it, and he's under no pressure. He just sort of stumbles over his own story, and eventually he unravels himself.
I think instinctively his first thing to say is, yeah, I've not seen her, because if he says, yeah, I've seen her, then he's in for a load more questions. But then he gets caught out because he doesn't know that the guy's got a sample of her handwriting. I don't think it's so much that he's a bad liar as much as he couldn't possibly know what Arbogast knew.
No, but it's not just that though, is it? He stumbles over loads of things. He could cover that up quite easily. He could have said, "Oh, I can't remember exact details of it now because I watched it quite a couple of days ago now." But it's like, I was like, why are you fucking doing that? Why are you saying that? You don't need to say it. He said enough to begin with.
There's almost a point where he's like a split second away, Norman, from saying, does that sound plausible?
Yeah.
But it's dominoes, isn't it? You can see he's tripping himself up with his lies. And the more he does that, the more he starts to feel anxious. I think it's really well played. But how much agency do you think he had in terms of the planning? On the murder side, it feels like he has no agency.
Yeah, that's not even him, is it?
Yeah. And then on the cleanup side, he's just trying to protect. So with that in mind, I think for his cleanup job, the swamp's a good idea, like you say. But everything else, I think he had very little agency. So he gets 4 florets of good old country broccoli.
Good old cubby broccoli.
That's quite a low amount of broccoli in the grand scheme of broccoli.
It's barely enough for a meal, Gaz, if you don't mind me saying so.
I'd certainly go hungry. I'd echo that, but I'd just add that the motel is kind of an ideal location, not perfect. But yeah, the fact that it's on sort of a formerly busy now, very quiet road in the dark, no street lighting. When he quote unquote forgets to put the lights on, it's basically shrouded in darkness. So from that aspect, I think it's quite decent. But I might have a better location in my plan.
Oh, there we go. That'll keep him hooked.
Just before we move on to the competition style round, we would like to thank you very much for listening to the show so far. Do remember, if you like what you hear each week, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts if you're on there. It's the best platform to help us grow the podcast, and you Peril Pals play an important part in that process. If you aren't on Apple, rate us on your provider of choice and follow us on socials at DiabolicalPod, now including Chinese spyware network TikTok.
I'd just like to officially say ni hao to our new overlords.
But you already knew that, didn't you, China? You knew exactly what was there.
And now we come to the part of the show where the panel of peril compete for precious peril points on the perilous leaderboard. Each member gets 1 vote, which will equal 1 point on the board, but do remember you cannot vote for yourself. Our task this week is to conjure the perfect setting to enable Norman/Mother to murder without fear of capture. So, let's do this! First on the docket, we shall have Adam, please.
Norman is a man divided. A constant battle between himself and his mother. Who decides what they're having for their tea tonight? Which colour socks are they wearing in the morning? How are they going to keep a roof over their heads? Norman, under his mother's direction, creates a fictional cookie company called Bates's Old-Timey Chewy Cookies. He spreads the word about the company, claiming his mother, Norma Bates, is the founder and the guardian of a highly coveted secret recipe for irresistible cookies. Norman makes it known that anyone interested in starting a franchise must travel to the Bates Motel for their 2-day company introduction to collect their franchise materials, cookie making cart, and learn the secret recipe. Most local folk, knowing that Norman has become eccentric and somewhat of a recluse since the passing of his mother, take this turn of events as a harmless way of Norman paying tribute to his mother and possibly a way of propping up his financial situation now the motel is seeing less business. They also agree his cookies are delicious, due to Norman having sold the cookies to the local populace for a number of months via a local store who collect once a week. Norman and his mother, however, don't take kindly to all visitors. Norman is quick to genuinely greet gentlemen or groups who come calling that he can't handle. They are the lucky ones who will be offered a full franchise and learn the secret recipe for Mother Bates's fabulous cookies, which is written on a sandstone headstone in the fruit cellar. The guy is clearly a little odd, but ultimately harmless, think the successful candidates. Norman and his mother don't always agree, and some of them are turned down, with the excuse that all this year's allocation of franchises has gone. The gents that are successful applicants, however, his mother takes a shine to. He obviously becomes furious. As his mother swoons over them, it sparks Norman's violent response. Norman, only having eyes for the fairer sex, is more than happy to welcome the latest pretty young thing into his home, much to the disappointment of his mother, who makes it very clear how she feels about them in the only way she knows possible. This constant tug of love between the two elements of his psyche continue to result in a stalemate, with each fulfilling their murderous desires in almost equal measure, whilst also making a tidy profit on the side. Should any investigator come a calling, private or law enforcement, asking about the disappearance of an individual, Norman can confidently state he turns many people away each year. He can't remember them all, but also there are many successful and leave with a franchise to seek their fortune across America, having paid for the franchise in full. They begin to wonder, with the growing popularity of their cookie recipe and carts, maybe it'll soon be time to branch out into Bates's Family Special Sausages.
Ooh.
Is that a League of Gentlemen crossover?
Well, the last bit was it's like alluding to maybe they'll make some special stuff. But the cookies are genuine bona fide cookies.
How are they disposing of the bodies in this plan?
Anyway, maybe just chuck them back in the swamp there and stuff like that. I don't know.
It's a good idea.
Just the same. Basically, the premise was the same, but it was just to try and detract the attention from them.
But with sweet treats and franchising.
Yeah, that's it. And they would have more people coming there, but then they'd be able to say, yeah, we've had loads of people staying here, but some people we've told to bugger off, some people we've given them, and they'll catch up with some of these people and go, did you notice anything funny about Norman Bates? Well, he's a bit odd, but he's not a killer or anything like that. And so, there's plenty of people to say he's a bit peculiar, but he's not a murderer, basically. And it was just trying to cover that. And then I couldn't reconcile the two parts of his psyche, either one getting the better of the other, because ultimately in the film it's them getting caught is what breaks that mental boundary, isn't it? And when one comes over the other, isn't it? His mother wins, essentially.
So a large number of people who go to the Bates Motel are still murdered. He's still able to carry out his murders, yeah?
I didn't specify the number.
So, but anyway, what I was going to say is, let's imagine I'm investigating Sweeney Todd, and I go to Sweeney Todd's barbershop and I say, do you know, 7 people in the last 3 years have been to your barbershop and then never been seen again. And Sweeney Todd goes, cut a lot of people's hair. And I just go, all right, then. I'll drop that lead.
Yeah, how many
I
people?
see
Yeah,
lots
how
of
many
things.
people?
Cookie.
Yeah, yeah. You
you
seen
see
that?
that?
Maybe.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I buy that the number of people getting turned down for this franchise would put me off the fact that any number of
No, there's
more
people
than
that are
more than 2
successful
or
as well.
3 people.
There's people that
Yeah,
are
but
there's
still.
people that are successful. There's people that
I
turn
accept
away.
that. I accept that.
There's still
I
people that
accept
stay at
that
the
fully.
motel, and there's local people as
Yeah.
well. So there's
Got ya.
enough.
Got ya.
Yeah.
Totally accept that. But what
Yeah.
I'm refuting is that if
Yeah.
more than 3 people went there and then disappeared, I'd still think that was a pattern worth following, regardless of how many people didn't die going there.
But I bet there's lots of people that go to.
In 1981, no one died. In 1982, no one died.
But I'd say there's probably people that visit the same restaurant a lot, and maybe there's a lot of them get killed every year. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the restaurant murdered them.
But
And
if they were all
especially-
going to the restaurant and died there, I would still probably follow up that lead, is what I'm thinking.
But there's no proof that they died there. That's the thing. There's lots of people that did go there and they weren't murdered. So that's the cover story.
Yeah,
you see.
I see.
He did say that there's lots of people who would act as almost like an alibi.
That's why I said there's people that come and go, and there's lots of people that maybe that are vulnerable or stuff, but they get through it. And then there's some people that don't, because either I don't know how many. I'd say maybe 2 or something. So one will spark Norman into a murderous rage, and maybe another one will spark his mother into killing him. So it's like a tit for tat sort of.
My only issue with it is I don't think Norman has the wherewithal to enforce the franchise. Once someone gets a franchise, they're going to be sharing that recipe with every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Yeah, well, they buy the franchise and they buy the recipe. So
yeah, and then they give it out, so no one goes to the Bates Motel anymore because this guy's just dishing out recipes.
Sub-franchise.
Oh, he's got a good lawyer. He's got a good lawyer, though. It's all contractual, it's all contractual. So they sign.
It's all contractual.
Yeah, but if that's what a franchise is, they don't go. Just give me £100 and you can have this. It's a contract, isn't it? It's like any franchise. So
you said that he lets people know. He makes them aware that the recipe is written on a headstone in the fruit cellar. So I think at least someone's breaking into that fruit cellar and having a look at it.
No, it's in the house, isn't it? So they have to break into the house to get to the fruit cellar.
Arbogast just walks in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's have Countertacular next, please.
Poor Norman Bates is stuffed. Mother has killed again, and soon others will be arriving at the motel, poking their beaks into his business. Worse still, it seems Mother has kept some of Marion Crane's clothes. Sure enough, a fellow named Arbogast has arrived at the motel asking questions. But before Norman can think, Mother has done him in too. On the other hand, perhaps Arbogast's arrival and demise was a gift. Perhaps it is not Norman who is stuffed, but Arbogast. Norman, as you know, is interested in taxidermy, and swiftly sets his experienced hand to expertly stuffing Arbogast's still fresh corpse. Once the messy work is over, he slips into something more comfortable, Marion Crane's knickers. Over the next few hours, Norman makes sure Arbogast is seen around town with a handsome woman who witnesses could later neither definitively confirm nor deny was Marion Crane. They dine together at a nearby Tex-Mex restaurant, reputed to be a front for a homosexual knocking shop. The owner seems reluctant to share details of his clientele, but he's able to confirm a table was booked in the name of Marie Samuels, the same pseudonym you'll remember which Marion used to book into the Bates Motel. A pair of Greyhound bus tickets are purchased under the same name. When Crane's sister arrives at the motel with Loomis in tow, Norman helpfully advises them that Arbogast has returned to the motel earlier that evening, claiming to have forgotten his wallet, and had also asked for directions to the restaurant and the coach station. With the pair now fully distracted by this lead, Norman has perfected the setup he will use in future to go about his business of killing girls uninterrupted. Namely, that he will stuff anyone who comes looking for them before dressing as his victims and taking his taxidermy out on dates to places where people will ask few questions.
So your weekend at Bernie'sing.
More or less.
Investigators. All right. So I thought it was a great plan. One question was, I wonder why you did it as Captain Jack Sparrow.
It was Michael Caine. I did it much better earlier, but I lost it somewhere in talking as myself.
I was going to say, why were you doing it as Vic Creeve's version of Melvin Bragg?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Melvin Bragg. Yeah. Picasso. What I might do is I might record it again in my proper Hitch voice. And
No, it sounded okay. I'm just teasing you.
No, I do a better one now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Diabolical Podcast.
So, Norman's Marion, basically. He's dressing up as Marion.
Well, for that particular murder, yeah.
And he's managed to taxidermy Arbogast in like 3 hours and a bit.
Yeah, give or take.
That was a bit of an ask.
Big ice cream scoop.
Well, he's well practiced, isn't he?
He's well in birds and small mammals and things like that, but not in people.
He's done his mother.
He did his mum, yeah.
Well, sort of.
Oh, more ways than one, probably.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Mother is a boy's best friend, after all.
that's true.
Yeah. She was obviously done several years prior, so her mummification has taken a long time. Arbogast's not going to be like that within a few hours.
I just wonder how long embalming somebody would take.
Well, he's not embalming, is he? He's not a funeral director.
I believe in Weekend at Bernie's, they didn't even bother doing any taxidermy.
Didn't do
Just
anything to
straight
him,
out
did
on
they?
out on the streets.
Isn't he discolouring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why Norman, as I say, he does perform taxidermy, and takes him a few hours with his skilled hand, practiced hand.
How does he disguise the dead eyes? They're a dead giveaway.
It's probably sunglasses, but as I say, he makes a point of going to a place that he knows people, they don't want to talk about who they've seen and what they've seen too much. Under pressure from Loomis, they'll say, I don't really like talking about my clientele, but as you are clearly in distress and this is a serious situation, I can say, yes, I did see a man fitting that description in here, and he was with a rather handsome woman. And he'll say, was it this woman? And they'll say, I don't know. We weren't paying them much attention. We don't pay much attention to our clients in here. They come here because they know it's a private place where they can come and get up to whatever they want.
Ribs and some
buggery, some sodomy.
Hanky panky.
Ribs and buggery. Is that what the place is called?
Ribs and sodomy.
It's called Adam and Steve's Rib.
I've just got one thing that I wrote down, surmising your plan, Weekend at Bernie's, but instead of the word at, I've done the symbol at, and then I thought, oh my God, you could remake this for the internet age.
Yeah, oh shit.
What that means, I don't know, but you've got your title. That's half the battle.
Dead on a webcam. It's a whole Zoom call, but they use like
a filter.
Like a kitty face, filter, and they pretend that
that fucking lawyer. Oh my God, we still laugh about that now. I'm not a cat, Your Honor. Any further cues?
I can see T-Dog's itching. He's angry because I dared to question his plan.
No, I was just going to say, I've just had a quick look at taxidermy, and to do just a deer head, it's 2 to 3 hours minimum.
For a lesser skilled person than than Norman Bates, clearly.
Yeah, maybe.
He's the Donald Trump of taxidermy. Does it better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Many are saying this.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's solve this once and for all. Craig, for the next episode, sorry, Countertacular, you lovely human being. For the next episode, you get a body,
Yeah.
and we'll record you taxidermy it.
Well, we
That's
only
gonna
record
solve
for
it.
2 hours, so that's bullshit.
Be a good TikTok, though, wouldn't it?
Also, I haven't been practicing on birds and dogs and mother for years, so it's hardly a fair comparison.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Righto, let's move on to Ben's plan.
Norman is disturbed. Disturbed by the lack of guests stopping by the Bates Motel, that is. That blasted new road. But as they say, nothing in this world is certain except for death and taxes. He knows that the times are a-changing, and being a somewhat morbid fellow and an accomplished taxidermist, he knows exactly what to do. He sets about converting 8 of the 12 cabins. He removes the furniture and decorations, save for the bed and a side table. He then paints the walls a drab colour and boards up the windows. He removes the beds from the remaining 4 rooms and uses the furniture he removed from the other rooms to make comfortable parlours. Next, he repaints the sign out front and stands back to admire his handiwork. Content with the job well done, Norman knows there is one final task before he can open for business. He needs Mother's approval. He runs to the house to fetch her. She casts a discerning eye over one of the parlours. "We need more stuffed birds, you bird-brained little sinner, and lots of them. Yes, that will show the families of the deceased that we're animal lovers, the type of people that wouldn't harm a fly. And add a few more lace doilies to class up the place. Put them wherever anything comes into contact with anything else. I want everything separated by a thin layer of crocheted lace, or it will be your hide. We're not beggars, do you hear me, boy?" She strides into another of the cabins. This one only has a bed and a side table. So this is where the bodies will go, is it? What are you planning to do with the bathroom? I thought I'd just keep the door closed, Mother. Stupid boy, what a waste of perfectly good space. No, put locks on the outside, and we can use it to store even more bodies, the ones we don't want folk to know about. While they're awaiting a one-way trip to the swamp, that is. Norman diligently makes the adjustments Mother requested, and soon the Bates funeral parlour is officially open. Norman now has a recession-proof business, and a bona fide excuse for all the dead bodies he amasses through his cheeky little adventures.
Wouldn't the coroner be bringing bodies to a funeral parlour, though?
They would, but there's a lot of widows that come to funeral parlours, and that is where the murderous desires would be satisfied. The lone mourners, my friend. Easy pickings.
What about when people go, why, there's plenty of people are dying, legit dying, but why are all the widows disappearing as well?
Well, they'd be dying of grief, don't they?
Yes, but I would imagine they would die of grief.
Dying of grief and their bodies are disappearing.
Well, that's the good Lord taking them up to be with their former partner.
No paperwork needed. They're just gone.
Oh, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
He could just maybe find the widows like collapsed on the road outside and be like, "Oh no, let's get her into the funeral home. Oh, she died. I'm just trying to help her."
By the way, why does he convert 8 out of 12 cabins? Is he dealing with 8 funerals at a time?
Well, it's for appearances, isn't it? So he wants the parlours so he can show people who come and say, "Look, we've got these little waiting room for the families," and then he sits in the lone widow.
He could have a little sideline for necrophiliacs as well, couldn't he?
Now you mention it, yes, he could.
Nice little add-on.
And that would probably end up becoming his main business.
What I thought you were going to do, because you were talking about the taxidermy as well, is I thought you were going to turn the motel into a sort of museum of like preserved bodies.
No, because you need to treat the corpse, don't you?
Yeah, wine it, dine it.
69 it.
You might want to re-record your spoiler warning, Gaz, to include necrophilia. A lot of trigger.
Surely people are expecting it by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say on reflection, honestly speaking, it probably suffers from the issue that Turner's does, that there could be a pattern traced back to it.
Yeah.
But because I defended Turner's, I will also defend mine.
Yeah, I shall defend you. See, I give you that necrophiliac's holiday, but Pontins, necrophiliac's Pontins. Yeah. Everybody wants to be there. Oh, that's lovely.
Finally,
Here we go.
I shall reveal my plan.
Oh my god. It's hideous.
Is it supposed to have 3 lumps on it?
I wanted to talk to you today about a very large vehicle named a cruise liner, as I'm proposing to you that Norman sets up shop aboard a cruise liner, kids. Think about it. He could take a job as a barman and inveigle himself into people's life stories, or he could become a lounge crooner, singing such classics as Mama Told Me Not to Come, Mama Didn't Lie, Mother Like Mine, and Agadoo. In between songs, Norman could have on-stage chats with audience members in order to, well, you get the idea. Even the job of cabin boy would allow Norman access to potential victims, as he could sneak into said cabins at the dead of night using a skeleton key and, well, you get the idea. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but Psycho is not in a shared universe with Agatha Christie's Poirot yet, although I have copyrighted this idea, so be warned, Hollywood hacks. My point being that there is no investigative presence aboard the vessel to solve the mystery of the disappearing Bints. And that's the title I've copyrighted, so be warned, Hollywood scribblers. Once said ladies have been parted from their mortal souls, Norman/Mother can simply hoik the remains over the starboard side of our cruise liner, along with any cleaning materials. The vessel, being a capitalist venture, is only concerned with the missing cleaning supplies and the cost of replacing them. Human life be damned.
Well, that rings true.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've fallen off and died on many cruise liners, and nobody looked for me.
Nope. Nobody's been the least bit interested.
Yeah.
On a serious note, I think we all discussed earlier that Mother Bates has no patience and that Norman has very little control over her. Do we think she's going to stay hidden while he's crooning or tending bar? Or is she's going to pop out in front of everyone else and start slashing people up?
I think maybe that's how he's able to hit the high notes when he's crooning. He switches back and forth between himself and Mother.
I guess she would appreciate his choice of songs.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you missed out a good song. Yeah, you missed out. Your Mother Should Know.
Yeah.
Should we sing that at the end?
Yeah. You know, as soon as Norman catches a glimpse, and don't forget, on cruises, women are very scantily clad. Very scantily clad.
Oh boy.
A lot of them you'll recognise wear itsy bitsy, teeny weeny, yellow polka dot bikinis. So as soon as Norman sees that, Mother's popping out, they're dead. It doesn't matter who's around.
Oops, Mother's popping out.
Oh, pardon.
Well, you say that, but Mother doesn't pop out until he dresses as Mother. He can't kill Marion in the parlour, can he? Because Mother's still in the house and he has to go and get her. See what I mean?
But it is Mother that kills her, right?
Yeah. So I think that on the cruise liner, if he did see these scantily clad ladies, he would hear Mother calling to him from his cabin or whatever. But he'd have to go back to his cabin to become Mother before he could kill anyone.
That's a good point.
Solid as a rock.
Craig's... fuck. You clever, handsome man. Countertacular. Countertacular saved you there, guys.
Again, he's just got so little respect for you wearing that moniker. He absolutely hates you.
Yeah. Is there definitely no other investigative presence on a cruise liner? They don't have
There's no laws at sea, mate. International waters. That's famous.
It's at all water, is it? As soon as
International waters. As soon as you get 10 miles away from a country, you bloody international waters do
Yeah.
no rules apply.
It's like the Purge.
You're a crook, Captain Hook.
Do you know what? Those plans, diabolical. That's what we had. Adam's plan to make a cookie franchise from the Bates Motel, which would attract lots and lots of people, only some of whom would be murdered. Countertacula's plan, which was weekend at Symbol Bernie's, involving a Tex-Mex restaurant where nobody would ask any questions.
Where nobody knows your name.
Ben's plan, which turned the Bates Motel into a funeral parlour in order to attract genuine clientele and some widows that they could just scoop in and dispose of. And my plan, which involved Norman working on a cruise liner. But there can only be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people who get points on the board. And with that, if we could all cast our votes, but not for yourselves, please, saucy babies. It's a tricky one this week.
Really?
I think so. Okay, I have voted for Adam's cookie plan because of spreading the wealth amongst people being killed and not killed.
Mm-hmm.
Ben?
I too have voted for Adam Cookie Donor.
Oh,
And also I'd like to see Norma Bates on the packet of cookies, like holding a tray of baked cookies.
yeah, like Aunt Jemima.
There's a nice
With,
image.
with the skull superimposed on his face for some reason.
Like a hologram. So you turn it, it's his face, and next minute it's a skull.
Yeah. Friggin' visionaries. And let's have Adam.
I have voted for. Where is it? Ben.
It's one for Ben.
Thank you.
And finally, let's see who Countertacula has voted for.
I've gone for the only plan where I think Norman's guaranteed to find hot young tail, and that is the cruise liner.
Ooh.
Fair enough. That's
very
quite
good.
a large endorsement there.
Well, I shall now reveal the scores. In the lead, with 19 points, remains Countertacula. In second place, with 16 points, is Adam. In third place, with 15 points, is Ben. And bringing up the rear with 13 points is me. So it's all quite close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 points separating top to bottom.
Yeah.
And we're going into the last round of films.
We are.
It's all
Yeah,
to play for.
final 4.
Exciting times.
Mm.
We're going
gonna
into the
happen?
ready money
Who's
round.
going to get to name themselves something stupid?
That will do us for another wonderful week, but fear not, we shall return for another set of scintillating schemes next week. Adam will have the pleasure of hosting the podcast with his choice of film. So, in the immortal words of Chaka Khan, would you tell me what you want to do?
Next week, we shall be going back to Bond and exploring Daniel Craig's first outing in Casino Royale.
Ooh.
I was wondering what
Indeed.
of Daniel Craig's we were going to be exploring. A few things ran through my mind there. What could it be?
Yeah.
All I'll say is, gentlemen prefer bonds.
Oh, don't they just?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a goodie.
Just before we peace the F out, I have a podcast recommendation for our listeners right now of Genre Vision, a weekly film club where Drew Deitch and Travis Newton review films by different themes each month, such as Western Month, which covered The White Buffalo, The Quick and the Dead, High Plains Drifter, and Rango. I've been listening to Travis and Drew for a couple of years now, and Genre Vision has turned me onto a lot of great films that I'd never seen before, so please do head over there and give them a listen. But, in the main, we hope you will join us next week as we discuss Casino Royale. It would be very, very good if you could join us. Until then, remember, everything will be alright in the end, and if If it isn't all right, then it isn't the end.
Beautiful.
Let's all get up
And dance to a song that was a hit before your mother was born. Though she was born a long, long time ago.
Damn
Your
clean.
mother should know.
Your mother should know.
Oh, your mother
Ooh.
should know.
Ah,
Sing it again.
Mama told me not to come.
Because she said it would mess up the balance on the
The
sofa.
skirt thing round the side of the bed.
That's called a valance.
Anyone watched Bates Motel, the series?
No.
With Vera Farmiga and
Watched the first couple of seasons. Freddie Highmore was Norman, wasn't he?
Freddie Highmore, yeah.
I remember it being decent.
I nearly got attacked by Norman Bates.
Oh, yeah, you didn't tell that story, did you?
In
we're
Universal
still recording.
Studios, you go past on the little Universal Studios kind of giant long golf cart thing that you ride. Bloody Norman comes down the bloody porch steps, doesn't he? Staring at you. Ooh,
Wow.
Jesus.
quick escape. You only just escape on your little golf cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Is it an actor or an animatronic?
Autoerotica.
No, it's an actor, and they've got like a perfect replica of the house, and the
Wow.
actor comes down. Apparently, he does random things, so it's different every time you come
All
out.
right.
So who is it?
Ace.
Who is it? Is it Andrew Garfield? Who is it?
I don't know. I was too busy closing my eyes.
Yeah. Nice.
But he nearly got killed by bloody Vin Diesel as well.
Yeah.
Bloody Fast and the Furious lot nearly had us. Buggers they
Like
are.
Jaws. Do you want the Jaws one? Almost get eaten by Jaws.
Oh, Jaws nearly had me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like an insurance nightmare.
it's all on the same kind of tour.
Oh,
where
is
you go
it?
around
Yeah.
the studio,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brilliant.
We're all adults here. Well, I'm pretty sure anyway. So we all know the sounds that various vehicles can and do make. But here at Diabolical, our demographic skews surprisingly young, with a 99% thumbs up rating in the 1 to 10-year-old bracket. And so on that basis, let's just take a moment to listen to some of the sounds various vehicles can and do make. So, I'm pretty sure you can hear that. That is a car. Yep, that's a car. You can't see the video, but there are various child's cars coming across the screen.
Various child's cars.
Yeah, like toys.
Ah,
This is, of course,
Choo-choo.
Steam
yeah,
train.
a train.
I thought it was a slide whistle.
There's 5 minutes of this, by the way. Next, we have fire engine.
Where is he going with this?
Could be any emergency vehicle, really, to be honest, couldn't it?
Sounds like an
Just off-
ambulance.
It's a fire engine. The screen is telling me it's a fire engine. So there.
They'll have slightly different tones, don't they?
That one.
Start the 18.
It's BA's least favourite method of travel, the helicopter. First we had a yellow helicopter, now we've got a blue one with a red star on it. Next up, we have quite a tricky one, this.
Truck.
It's a kind of truck.
HGV. Or a
A
semi.
big red double-decker truck
If you're a...
called a bus.
Oh, bus is it? Oh, right, sorry.
That's Turner.
Ship.
This is ours.
Yeah, Paul, excuse me.
This one travels across water. Bit of a clue there.
Hovercraft.
Is it a duck? Okay.
Different siren.
Police.
Police
I
car.
think it's quite...
Policia.
Yeah, police. Quite different to that fire engine siren, I think you'll find. This car's got a little robber in the back pulling a cheeky little grin.
Gonna put this video in the show notes.
Yeah, I reckon a lot of this is going to end up on the cutting room floor.
It's fucking riveting stuff.
I was thinking
Airplane.
your plan was going to have to be pretty boring to be worse than the other two, but you're getting there.
Congratulations.
That's an aeroplane, of course.
I'm just waiting for the sucker punch. It's coming.
Yeah.
Next. Ding ding.
Maybe it's not. Maybe this is it.
Oh, bicycle.
It's a bicycle. And now there's a bear on a penny farthing. Very
Oh,
good.
that's
It's wearing a
cute.
top hat and a boob tube.
Now that's a plan.
Nearly there.
Tractor. Come on, get on with it.
Tractor.
That's a tractor. Nailing these. There's about 4 left, I think, looking at the tab.
Fucking hell.
It's a good job I know it's been working a bit, innit?
We'll just do one more then. Okay. Oh, I don't think you're going to guess this. I wouldn't know.
Oh, it's a steam cleaner. Someone's steaming their clothes.
That is a rocket.
Okay.
Separating now.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay.
Oh, is
stop
it?
there.
It's not
Okay.
quite. Oh, yeah, because at the start, it's like it goes down, doesn't it? Like.
Doesn't get better than a rocket, does it? Peak of travel.
Pretty interesting. I think you'll agree, Peril Kid.
Right, any questions for Gaz?
But I don't even want to talk about any of those vehicles. That was just a little bit of fun. A jape,
Smoke
a
and mirrors.
giggle, a jest, a joke. Well, you get the idea.